It's one way out of this life, one way, and we all have to die. Hello and welcome, King and Queens, to another exciting episode of the Dr. Lydia Show. I'm Dr. Lydia, and welcome. Thank you so much for continuing to join me on this journey. Today, I wanted to give you a lot of great information. See how many cards? I wanted to hurry it up and be able to try to compress. That's the word. I'm trying to compress as much information in this episode as possible, because as we go along, I've been telling you a lot about business and how to implement plans, ideas, how to kind of decide on what business do you want to start, and trying to get you out of that employee mindset or self-employment mindset to more of a business and an investor mindset. So today we're going to discuss different types of businesses, so you kind of would have a better understanding. So the first one is a C Corp, or a corporation itself. So C Corps are, and this is just a nutshell, there are a lot of different benefits, more than I will discuss. And it really depends on what it is, the structure that you decide on for yourself, for you to go out, get some more information. Remember to always talk to your tax advisor or whomever, or even send me a question if there's something that I say inside here that's maybe not that clear to you and you wanted a little bit more information, so that I will be able to help you too. So there's a C Corp, and C Corps are usually for big businesses that want to later on incorporate. And in this particular business, you would have stakeholders, and any profits within your business, you would pass down to your investors as dividends. So for instance, when you buy, say, stocks from Apple or Tesla, they are essentially a C Corp. And when you purchase that stock, you now have a piece of that company as a common stock. Now, had you gotten in initially as one of those big investors, you probably have preferred stocks. Now, some of the downfalls in selling common stocks, right? Here's the tidbit, is that this is why when a lot of companies, and before I even get to the different ones, I want to tell you this. When a lot of companies sell common stock, it's because at the end of the day, the people who hold the common stocks, they're the ones that lose their money first. So there's no real protection for you. Okay, just so you know that. So whether you buy on Robinhood or any one of those sites, whether it's Disney or anything like that, you're really buying common stocks. So that type of organization or entity is called a C Corp. Now there's another organization type is called an S Corp. Now, an S Corp is similarly to a C Corp, but you remember when I tell you about the common stock, or a lot of people could have stakeholding within that company? Well, with a S Corp, you can only have 100 or less. So you can't have more than 100 stakeholders or investors or partners or something like that. And the other thing with a C Corp is that when you have a C Corp, the monies, or if there's any capital gain, they'll pass it down through by the end of the fiscal year, whether it's June or December, whatever it is that your organization decide on when you're doing that structure, you would pass that monies on to your stakeholders or to your directors or whoever really own the company. Then there's the LLC. LLC really stands for limited liability organization. And another thing why most people would want to go with a corporation and an LLC, because of the limited liability. So essentially you wouldn't pierce the corporate veil to be able to sue you if there's anything, or sue the big organization on a whole. Now, with an LLC, that is the corporate structure for most small business, because right off the bat, your tax advisor or the person who helps you register your business will tell you that, it will limit your liability just in case something was to happen or you were to be sued. You're protected. One thing I want to tell you here is that if at any point you or somebody within your organization have done something wrong, the best thing to do is to resolve it before it even gets to any form of legality. I mean, I think back to this really great book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that book, it's like a lot of us are able to resolve issues before it gets to there. I mean, of course, there's always the outliers, those people that are always trying to get you or scam you or different things like that. And for that, you should always, always, always fight for yourself, fight for your business. And because if you lay down for anybody, really, you'll not become a target. So you should really have that backbone to be able to fight and have the right people on your team to be able to fight with you. So with the limited liability, of course, say for instance, you have an organization. In a minute, I'll tell you what is a really good way to structure this stuff. But say you have an organization and one arm and you have an internet e-commerce business, that could be its own separate LLC. Say within there, you have, say, an event business, that could be its own LLC. So every business entity could be its own. Now, another different structure that most people don't even consider or even think of themselves being, especially within America, is that you yourself, once you have a social security number, you have the ability to be a sole prop. And once you're a sole prop, now, once you're doing business or a side hustle, you don't necessarily have to go register as a LLC or a C Corp or an S Corp. You don't have to. But if you want to take away that liability and separate yourself, which is a good thing because you always want to look long term, right? So, but I am just saying that if it's something that you just wanted to test out to see where it's going, you don't have to go full force into paying the corporate fees to be able to register your business. And another form of business entity that they don't talk about other than a W-2 employee, a 1099 employee. Now you are considered a subcontractor or an independent contractor. And for you or somebody with a specialized trade, if, say, you were a contractor and you hired someone else to do the plumbing portion of your work, and you wanted to, from the contractor, from the entire contracting, that monies that you pay out to contract labor to that plumber or to that electrician or to the tiling person or to the roofing person, and you wanted to pay them separately, they would possibly get, within the United States, get a W-9 form for them to fill out all the information, whether it's to another company or an individual, and at the end of the year, they will now give them a 1099 to be able to say, hey, tell the government, hey, look, I got $100,000 and I paid $25,000 to this one company because they did this, another $15,000, whatever the numbers are. This is how these corporate or structures are set up. Now, there are different structures for businesses, and a lot of us innately, when we want to start an organization, we want to give back. And our first thing is either we want to start a church, a school, something. We want to start something to do with nonprofit. Now, what's interesting to me is because a lot of people have the idea that nonprofits don't really make money. No, the difference is nonprofits, they make the money a lot of times more than other organizations. But is that what they're telling the government is that now that I am classified as a tax exempt, whatever category that you may fall under, whether it's church, school, academic, educational services, whatever it is. Because, for instance, the IRS tax code have different a lot of different services or codes that categorize what entity you are, whether you are a profit or for nonprofit. So at that point, what you're telling them is that any profits that I make, I'm actually passing that money through my organization, so that I'm basically putting the money back into the company itself. Now, that by no means says that the directors, the owners, and everybody don't get paid. And that's a misconception to even people that are giving. It's like, yes, you get a tax break. Absolutely. Yes, you get a tax break, even with a lot of these big companies. And this is something that I'd learned early on. When they're nonprofit, we want to give. But then when you think about it, is that a lot of your giving goes to administrative costs. Only a small amount actually goes directly to the people that you intended to help. So these are all things that I would like for you to consider when you're giving, when you're creating your organization, and whatever the entity may be for you. Now, something else that I wanted to tell you, another organization that people don't, well, especially us, trust and wills. Now, wills are for somebody, well, for anybody really. Like, it doesn't matter what you have. You should put together a will to itemize what it is that, whether you have just a cup, who do you want to get what, just in case you're not here anymore. And a lot of for us, this is a conversation we don't want to have. But again, you don't know what will happen at any given point. So it would be beneficial to you to be able to have it in writing. It was today I was having a conversation and somebody said to me is that lawyers or attorneys are the ones that benefit a lot when it comes to these things, like people not having a will, probate, any legal issue really, because at the end of the day, they are getting paid by the hour to do the ripping and the fighting and the negotiating. And while you are the ones not really having anything resolved, and it's just going around in circles while you still have to pay. So the thing is, to avoid a lot of these issues, you should have a will. For instance, when I first had my baby, I learned about wills and I thought to myself, you know what? I mean, I have much, but I was considering what would happen to me if anything happened to me. Where would I want her to be, or any one of my children, really? And as I had more children, I developed it and I itemized basically my last wish and testimony. I think to myself, at some point, I would probably have some form of say, right? And so I would put that there. If I had a car and it was like, okay, well, I would like my car to go to my daughter. And if, say, one of my sisters or my ex had my daughter, I would want to say, okay, well, anything other than if they wanted them just to take care of them, great. They will do that. But when the child or the children become a certain age, say 18 years old, you will develop some form of plan to say, well, they will get X amount of money. Now, and this will come in a form of will. You could do that, or a trust. Now, some people that a lot of times when you hear about trusts, celebrities, I think to myself that always comes to mind. For instance, when Whitney Houston developed a trust for Bobby Christine, and how she set it up that she would get X amount by the time she was 21. And by the time she was 25, she should get a certain amount. And if, say, something was to happen or Christine didn't have an offspring, that money would go directly back to her mom. Because I remember in the media at the time, everybody thought that Bobby Christine's dad, Bobby Brown, would have gotten the money. And the way Whitney structured her finances when it comes to trust and what would happen to it, it's really important. So those are things that I am recommending that you consider in formulating your trust, your will, or whatever business entity. Now, this is while we are considering all our business entity and all of this stuff, this is how I always recommend that we do this. First, you set up a trust. Once you set up a trust, then you set up some form of corporation. Once you set up a corporation, then under the corporation, each entity will be an LLC. Another organization you should set up right next to the trust. And your trust, if it's with you initially, whether you have real estate or whatever assets that you may have, no matter how small that you may think it is, you'll set up a revocable trust right now to be able to say that I am the administrator at this point, and if anything was to happen to me, my beneficiaries would get it, right? This is something that I don't think most people are aware of, is that when you set up your trust, it saves your beneficiaries don't pay taxes on the monies, real estate, on the things that are left within it. Opposed to when you have a will, they still have to pay taxes. So these are things that you want to forward think. For me, I would suggest once you do your trust comes first. Once you do your trust, then say you have your life insurance, the beneficiary should be the trust. See? And just think, so anything happens to you, the life insurance goes towards the trust, and whoever is overseeing the trust will now give it out to whomever, your kids, who it is. For instance, even if you don't have children, if you have cousins or whoever that you want to leave it to, whatever nonprofit. And then right next to that corporation is a nonprofit organization. Because again, I said innately, we want to give back. And in giving back, you want to make sure that the money and the funds go to the right places, to the people or to the organizations that you're trying to help, whatever cause that moves you. So once you set it up this way, all the profits or a certain percent of it could always go towards the organization within your entire big umbrella of vision. So, and then for me, I will preach to you every single day about generational wealth. When you're thinking generational wealth, I am thinking structuring your trust in a way that your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, they'll know that, for instance, you wanted to pay for them to go to college. Yes, you can put that in writing. Whatever specialty that they want to do, you say, well, I can allocate within our organization a certain amount, $25,000, $30,000, $50,000, whatever your heart's desire for your future generation, or you could even factor inflation. But these are conversations that I think that most of us don't sit there and really think about. And it's really important because guess what? It's one way out of this life, one way, and we all have to die. So whether we plan for it or not, it's going to happen at some point. So my thing is, put it on paper, make plans, and do what's necessary so that there won't be, your beneficiaries won't be tied up into court, and they will get the benefits that they need. So while I was doing this, I thought to myself, some of the best places to register your company. Well, before I itemize the United States, I didn't even know this myself, so I'm excited about sharing this with you. Some of the top 10 places, I researched this Law and Trust, and it was saying 10 places worldwide for anybody that wanted to do business, and it just showed a little tidbits of why you would want to do business in these countries. And I thought, what? Let me share it with you, because the more information, the better. And guess what? We don't know what the future holds, and maybe one of these will be able to help you. So, number one, they had New Zealand. One of the reasons why they said New Zealand is because, one, you could register your business there within 2 days, and there's no taxes. So that's always good. Number two, Singapore. And again, these are countries I'd love to visit myself, and my hope is that the podcast, when I visit these places and I go check out the process in doing businesses or whatever the situation is, I can share with you. So Singapore is number 2 on the list, and it's because they have no capital gain taxes or dividend taxes. Again, being able to keep as much of the money for ourselves, it's really important so that we could pass that on. Well, first, we could put the money back in our business. We can expand and grow our business, for, as much as we want to. And whatever profits that we get within the business, we can either start additional businesses or leave that to our next generation. So that's what we are trying to build. Again, is generational wealth. Number 3, it's Virgin Islands. And this one is really good because it's really a great business place for internet entrepreneurs. It says because if you're trying to have worldwide income or you're selling things everywhere, British Virgin Islands would be the place that you want to set up your business. And it's because it says here, it's one of the most reputable and experienced companies. Some of the most reputable and experienced companies operate directly out of the British Virgin Islands. What? Super cool. Number 4 is Denmark. And Denmark, because of the flexible hiring and firing rules, it reduces costs and it's easy to register your company there. Now, I know for an employer, you're thinking, oh my gosh, but I want us to always approach it as a business, us minding our own business, us creating businesses for future generations. So us having that shift in mentality, you want to have some form of flexibility and to be able to reduce the costs, again, to be able to save back some of that money for you. Now, Great Britain, it's because this is number 5, because of its tax incentives for investors, founders, and employment. And you can open up your business in less than an hour for £20. Not even in the United States, so you know. Number 6, they have here Norway. They said Norway, it's number 6 because of its digital communication, not just digital communication with being able to conduct your business, but being able to deal with the government. It is that easy to be able to maintain and is very cost effective. And again, it says here that it's great for online companies. Number 7, Canada. Canada comes in at number 7, and it's because it's a good place to develop innovative business. It's strong with engineering expertise. It's low cost in maintaining your company. And of course, as a lot of us know, it is very low cost in living there. But I don't know if I've been to Canada, right? A little bit of segue here. The gas price in Canada is extremely high. I mean, we drove the RV from PA to Canada. And when I'm telling you, after car, so beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But when we stopped to buy gas, like what normally was probably $150 in the US was almost $400 there in Canada. So I think there's like a give and take with everything. So again, it's up to you to be able to do your research and be able to decide on what it is that you want to do. The United States came in at number 8 because of its wide variety of sources of funds that you could raise, whether it's investment funds, banks, venture capitalists, and we talked about that a little bit, or angel investors. It's easy to register. And in the United States, you don't have to be an American. You could also be a foreigner. One of the biggest downfalls, again, or the biggest downfall with the United States is the capital gain tax. And of course, or I don't know if you know, but this year, the capital gain tax went up from, I think it was 33%, now it's 35%. So these are things that you need to be mindful of. Now, Isles of Man is the place, and that comes in at number 9. It came in at number 9 because of its zero income tax rate, its benefits for holding an investment portfolio, and commercial real estate. So You know if you got a good portfolio where you need to be going to register your things and to be able to hide your money, right? Number 10 comes in with Nevist. Nevist is diverse, and it's one of the best places for asset protection. It's confidentiality. It protects your business from lawsuit. And of course, this country or this island they are ready to discuss you as an entrepreneur having dual citizenship. So this may be something for you to consider too. Now, in the United States, there are a few states that I highly recommend to my clients. Now, of course, you can register your business in any state, any form. If you're, say, for instance, you had any questions, one of the first things is to do, of course, do your own research, what entity you want to do. But say, for instance, if you had any questions, it's really easy to call your county. It's really easy to call your state because they are there to help you. I know, for instance, in the state of Florida, there's no state tax, of course. And some states within the United States have no state taxes. But in other states, you have to consider paying state taxes and federal taxes when it comes to that capital gain. But in the state of Florida, depending on even though there's no state tax, say for instance, you had a franchise in the state of Florida, you would be subject to Florida corporate tax. If you had any form of corporation or a C Corp, you would be subject to Florida state tax. So that is something for you to consider. Now, all the other business entities, an S Corp wouldn't be subject to it, an LLC or a sole proprietorship will not be subject to it. But of course, you would still have to pay your annual taxes every single year to keep your business going. And also remember that if you do not pay your corporate taxes or your annual taxes on time, you will be subject to whatever fees, some included in the state of Florida. I know like in the state of Delaware, it would range from $200 to $400, someplace maybe $500 to be able to keep your business going or keep that business name or keep that entity active. Now, for me, I always recommend, there's also some of the best places within the United States to open and register your business. And the few I will tell you about is Delaware, New Mexico, Nevada, Wyoming. And those within the United States are considered corporation heaven. Let me tell you, like I used to go through Delaware all the time and I thought, wait, State Farm is right there. Navient at the time, which was the student loan company. I saw Progressive. A lot of these insurance companies, like their head office was in the state of Delaware. Now, if you look on the map, Delaware is not that big. And I was like, what? And then in doing your research, you realize this is one of the best places to incorporate your business. People would hear that and say, well, I don't live in Delaware. How am I able to do it? Well, one of the companies that I would recommend, or what you would do is find you a registered agent. They would now be your representative within that state. They would also remind you when state fees are due and things like that. And if there's an issue, they will get it and make sure that you get that information. It is the same with any state, really, that if say you wanted to register your business in Texas, you would need to get a registered agent in Texas if you don't live there. So those are things that you should consider. But one of the things that I love about these incorporation havens that I wanted to wrap up and tell you about is that when you register with them, you don't have to disclose your financial information. You don't have to disclose all your directors and everybody like you do with most states. For instance, again, in the state of Florida, once you register your organization and somebody Googles you, Sunbiz will pop up, boop, and you're there. Now, for me and with my clients, I would always recommend that you have some form of anonymity. And if you want corporate anonymity, where you're able to protect yourself within the United States, other than, you could check out the list of different countries that I just told you about. But in the United States, one of the best places to be able to do this is the state of Delaware. So I know within this episode, it's a lot of information that I've given you, and I don't want to overload you, but I recommend, if I said something and I may have said it a little bit too fast for you to go back and listen and share with your friends, share with your family, in your mastermind group that you're developing or you're becoming a part of. Decide on where is the best place for you guys to be able to, one, you always want to keep more money within your organization. I know countries you need taxes to be able to run, but your company does need the money and the finances to be able to run and to be able to run effectively and properly, right? So for that, you have to go through and check out every one of these and see which is the best for you. And if you have any questions, I am here. Send me an email, share, follow, and continue to join me on the Dr. Lydia Show. I'm Dr. Lydia, and I'll see you next time.